There exists a doorway between what we see and what we truly perceive, a threshold that most people cross without ever recognizing its presence. The Andalusian mystic Ibn Arabi understood this passage better than perhaps any philosopher before or since, not as a technique to be mastered, but as a state of being to be embodied. When we speak of reading people in seconds, we are not discussing manipulation or cold calculation. We are exploring something far more profound, something that touches the very essence of what it means to be human. The ability to perceive another person's truth is not a skill reserved for those with extraordinary intelligence or training. It is a forgotten faculty that lies dormant within each of us, waiting to be awakened through understanding and presence. In the frenetic pace of modern existence, we have become experts at seeing without perceiving, at hearing without listening, at touching without feeling. Our interactions have become transactions, our conversations mere exchanges of information rather than genuine meetings of souls. Yet beneath this surface of disconnection, something ancient and powerful still pulses, an innate human capacity to recognize truth in the subtle movements of a face, the barely perceptible shift in posture, the micro-tremor in a voice. Ibn Arabi called this capacity the polishing of the heart's mirror, the cultivation of an inner clarity that allows divine reality to reflect itself through our perception. When the mirror is clouded with judgment, expectation, and the noise of our own mental chatter, we see only distorted fragments. When it is polished through presence and awareness, we see with startling accuracy, not because we have learned to analyze, but because we have learned to witness. The human face is a landscape of revelation, a territory where the invisible becomes briefly, involuntarily visible. Scientists have identified what they call micro-expressions, fleeting facial movements that last between a 25th and a 5th of a second, too quick for conscious control, but not too quick for the trained eye to perceive. These momentary eruptions of truth occur when the conscious mind attempts to suppress genuine emotion, when we try to hide what we truly feel behind the mask of what we believe we should display. A flash of contempt crosses the face for 1/5 of a second before the polite smile settles into place. A moment of genuine fear flickers in the eyes before the performance of confidence begins. These are not deceptions we consciously orchestrate. They are the inevitable leakage that occurs when the pressure of authentic emotion meets the dam of social conditioning. Ibn Arabi would have recognized these micro-expressions as manifestations of what he called the divine names, reflecting themselves through human form. Each person, a unique configuration of attributes, each emotion, a momentary revelation of inner reality seeking expression in the material world. But to see these revelations, one must first understand the paradox at the heart of human perception. The more we try to analyze, the less we actually see. Analysis requires distance, categorization, the imposition of mental frameworks that inevitably separate us from the living reality before us. The analytical mind asks, what does this gesture mean? How should I categorize this expression? And in the asking, misses the direct transmission of truth that occurs beneath and beyond words. Ibn Arabi taught that real knowledge cannot come from imitating others or memorizing techniques, but must be discovered through direct realization, a kind of knowing that emerges when the boundaries between knower and known temporarily dissolve. When you truly see another person, you are not collecting data about them. You are experiencing a momentary unity, a recognition that transcends the illusion of separation. This is why the most skilled readers of human behavior often cannot fully explain how they know what they know, because their knowing originates not in the calculating intellect, but in a deeper stratum of consciousness, where perception and intuition merge. Consider the eyes, those ancient gateways that poets and mystics have celebrated across millennia. We speak of eyes as windows to the soul, yet most of us have forgotten how to look through those windows with genuine attention. The direction of a gaze, the dilation of pupils, the subtle tension or softening around the orbital muscles, each carries information that bypasses verbal communication entirely. When someone maintains steady eye contact while speaking truth, there is a quality of openness, an invitation to connection. When deception enters the interaction, the eyes often betray the lie before the mouth has finished speaking, not through obvious avoidance, as popular psychology might suggest, but through minute changes in blinking patterns, in the coordination between what the mouth says and what the eyes reveal. Yet here is where the seeker must exercise caution. These signs are not universal codes to be mechanically applied. A person from one cultural background may avert their gaze as a sign of respect. Another may do so from shame or concealment. The truth lies not in the isolated gesture, but in the constellation of signals, the symphony of non-verbal communication that each individual unconsciously orchestrates moment by moment. Ibn Arabi spoke of the perfect human, al-insan al-kamil, as one who has integrated and realized all the divine attributes within themselves, becoming a complete reflection of the divine reality. This concept offers a profound framework for understanding human perception. Each person we encounter is simultaneously a perfect and imperfect mirror. Perfect, because they are a unique and complete expression of the divine names manifesting through their particular configuration. Imperfect, because the mirror may be clouded, cracked, distorted by trauma, conditioning, and the accumulated debris of unlived life. When you look at another person with this understanding, you are not merely trying to detect lies or manipulate outcomes. You are witnessing the divine struggling to express itself through the limitations of human form. This shift in perception transforms the entire enterprise of reading people from a tactical exercise into a sacred act. You begin to see not just what someone is hiding, but what they are protecting. Not just their deception, but their pain. Not just their mask, but the vulnerable face beneath it. The body speaks a language older than words, more honest than the stories we tell ourselves. Posture reveals the relationship between a person and their environment, their sense of safety or threat, their confidence or insecurity in the current moment. An open posture, arms uncrossed, chest accessible, body oriented toward you, signals receptivity and trust. A closed posture, arms folded across the chest, body angled away, shoulders raised protectively, indicates defensiveness or discomfort, though not necessarily with you. Perhaps with the topic being discussed, perhaps with a memory the conversation has triggered. Watch the feet, those humble extremities that most people never consciously monitor and therefore never consciously control. Feet pointed toward you signal genuine interest. Feet pointed toward the door reveal where the person's attention truly wants to go. Yet once again, the principle applies. No single signal exists in isolation. The corrugator muscle between the eyebrows activates during both anger and intense concentration. Only by observing the complete pattern, corrugator tension plus nodding plus genuine smile equals focused attention, while corrugator tension plus rigid posture plus narrow eyes suggests hostility, can you begin to accurately read the emotional landscape before you? There is something deeply mysterious about the phenomenon of mirroring, that unconscious tendency humans have to subtly imitate the posture, gestures, and even vocal patterns of those they feel connection with. Neuroscientists attribute this to mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we witness someone else performing the same action. But Ibn Arabi would have understood mirroring as something more mystical, as evidence of the fundamental unity underlying apparent multiplicity, the way individual waves mirror each other because they are all expressions of the same ocean. When you observe someone mirroring your body language, you are witnessing their nervous system recognizing kinship with yours, their unconscious mind signaling, "You and I are not so different. I am safe with you." Conversely, when someone consistently positions their body in opposition to yours, crossing their arms when yours are open, leaning back when you lean forward, breaking eye contact when you seek it, their body is speaking a truth their words may be concealing. They do not feel safe, do not feel aligned, do not want what you are offering, regardless of what polite agreement their mouth might be producing. The voice carries layers of information that the conscious mind rarely processes, but the intuitive body always registers. Pitch, tempo, volume, the spaces between words, each modulation reveals something about the speaker's internal state. When someone speaks truth from a place of alignment, their voice has a quality of resonance, of fullness, of organic rhythm. When deception enters, the voice often becomes either slightly higher in pitch, a subtle stress response, or artificially controlled, stripped of natural variation. Listen for incongruence between verbal content and vocal tone. Words that say, "I'm fine," delivered in a voice that quavers with suppressed emotion, expressions of agreement spoken with an edge of irritation. The body does not lie in the way the conscious mind can lie. It simply reveals what is, moment by moment, for those who have developed the sensitivity to perceive. Yet this sensitivity cannot be cultivated through technique alone. It requires what Ibn Arabi called the polishing of perception, a process that involves not just training the senses, but purifying the inner witness. Here we arrive at the crucial distinction that separates superficial people-reading techniques from the profound understanding Ibn Arabi offers. Most approaches to reading people position the observer as separate from and superior to the observed, as if you are a detective examining a suspect, a scientist studying a specimen. But Ibn Arabi's framework dissolves this artificial hierarchy. When you understand that the person before you is a manifestation of the same divine reality that manifests as you, that their particular configuration of strengths and wounds and defenses is no less sacred than your own, the entire quality of your perception shifts. You are no longer trying to gain advantage or expose weakness. You are attempting to recognize truth, to see clearly what is present without the distorting filters of judgment and projection. This does not mean you become naive or fail to protect yourself from genuine harm. It means you see danger clearly when it exists, and do not create imaginary danger where there is only difference or discomfort. The cultivation of this capacity begins with self-observation, with learning to read the landscape of your own inner experience before attempting to read others. Notice what happens in your body when you feel defensive. Perhaps your jaw tightens, your breath becomes shallow, your shoulders rise toward your ears. Notice what happens when you feel genuine openness. Perhaps your chest softens, your breathing deepens, your face naturally relaxes into a subtle smile. By developing intimacy with your own non-verbal communication, you create the possibility of recognizing similar patterns in others. This is not narcissism or self-absorption. It is the necessary groundwork for genuine empathy, which Ibn Arabi understood not as sympathetic feeling but as direct perception of another's reality. When you have felt your own fear, really felt it in all its texture and intensity, you can recognize fear in another person, even when they are expertly concealing it. When you have inhabited your own joy fully, you can distinguish authentic delight from performed happiness in someone else's expression. But self-knowledge alone is insufficient. It must be paired with what Ibn Arabi called the cultivation of presence. Presence is not a technique. It is a quality of attention that emerges when you temporarily set aside your agenda, your judgments, your need to control outcomes. In the state of presence, you are not thinking about what to say next, not rehearsing your argument, not protecting your image. You are simply here, fully attentive to what is arising in this moment. This quality of attention is rare in contemporary culture, which trains us to be perpetually distracted, constantly consumed by the past or the future, never fully inhabiting the present. Yet it is only in presence that the subtle revelations of non-verbal communication become perceptible. The micro-expression that lasts 1/5 of a second will be invisible to you if your attention is scattered. It becomes unmissable when your attention is collected, unified, present. This is why meditation and contemplative practices are not separate from the development of perceptual acuity. They are its foundation. Consider a conversation between two people where one is fully present and the other is defended, distracted, operating primarily from habitual patterns. The present person will notice things the defended person cannot see. The subtle shift in the other's breathing when a sensitive topic is approached, the momentary tensing of the jaw before a smile is deployed, the way the hands become restless when a particular name is mentioned. But the present person will notice these things without aggression, without the need to weaponize the information. Instead, they might gently adjust their approach, offering more space if they sense the other is overwhelmed, more directness if they sense the other is lost in evasion. This is reading people in service of connection rather than conquest, in service of truth rather than triumph. It is the difference between a predator studying prey and a healer assessing where medicine is needed. Ibn Arabi spoke extensively about the imaginal realm, alam al-mithal, an intermediate dimension between the purely physical and the purely spiritual, where inner realities take on perceptible form. This concept offers a powerful lens for understanding the subtle art of reading people. Every person carries an imaginal body, a field of presence that extends beyond their physical form. This field contains information about their emotional state, their intentions, their level of authenticity in the current moment. Some people describe sensing this field as energy or vibe, and while the language may vary, the experience is universal. You have felt when someone enters a room carrying anxiety, like a cloud around them, even before they speak. You have felt when someone is genuinely happy to see you versus performing politeness while wishing they were elsewhere. This perception occurs not through the 5 physical senses alone, but through what Ibn Arabi called the organ of the heart, the faculty of imaginal perception that operates between sensory observation and intellectual analysis. The development of this imaginal perception requires what might be called receptive sensitivity, the capacity to allow impressions to arise without immediately categorizing or judging them. When you meet someone new, notice what arises in you before any words are exchanged. A sense of warmth or coldness, expansion or contraction, ease or vigilance. These initial impressions are not infallible. They can be colored by your own projections and biases, but they often contain genuine information that the rational mind, in its need for logical justification, will later override. The practice is to hold these impressions lightly, neither dismissing them as meaningless nor treating them as absolute truth, but allowing them to inform your perception as one stream of data among many. Over time, as you observe the correlation between your initial impressions and later verified reality, you begin to develop trust in this faculty of imaginal perception. Yet here is where the shadow side of this capacity must be acknowledged, for the ability to read people can become a tool of manipulation as easily as a tool of compassion. Those who develop perceptual acuity without developing ethical grounding will inevitably use their skills to exploit vulnerabilities, to manipulate outcomes, to extract what they want without regard for the well-being of others. This is the path of the con artist, the abusive partner, the cult leader, individuals who have learned to read microsignals with devastating accuracy and use that information to dominate and control. Ibn Arabi's framework offers a safeguard against this corruption, the recognition that harming another is ultimately harming oneself, because the apparent separation between self and other is an illusion. When you truly understand that the person before you is a manifestation of the same divine reality that manifests as you, exploiting them becomes as absurd as your left hand attacking your right. The ethical dimension is not an optional addition to perceptual skill. It is intrinsic to the deepest level of understanding. One of the most powerful practices for developing genuine people-reading capacity is what might be called compassionate curiosity, approaching each person as a mystery to be honored rather than a puzzle to be solved. The difference is subtle but profound. A puzzle exists to be solved, to surrender its secrets, to yield to your analytical prowess. A mystery remains irreducible even as you deepen your understanding of it. It invites endless exploration without ever being exhausted. When you approach someone as a puzzle, you are seeking closure, the satisfaction of having figured them out. When you approach them as a mystery, you remain perpetually open to new revelations, new dimensions of their being that had previously been invisible to you. This openness creates the conditions for genuine perception, because people reveal themselves most fully when they sense they are being met with curiosity rather than judgment, with appreciation rather than assessment. Watch what happens in a conversation when someone feels truly seen, when their subtle signals are being received with accuracy and compassion. Often, there is a visible softening, a dropping of defensive postures, an increase in eye contact and openness. It is as if some burden they have been carrying, the burden of managing their image, of protecting themselves from misunderstanding, can temporarily be set down. This is the gift that accurate perception offers, not power over the other person, but the possibility of genuine meeting. When you demonstrate through your attention and responses that you are actually perceiving what they are communicating beneath their words, something in them relaxes, opens, becomes more authentic. Ironically, this means that the most powerful use of people-reading skills is to create safety for others to stop performing, to stop hiding, to show themselves more fully. This is the opposite of manipulation. It is invitation to authenticity. Context is everything when it comes to accurately interpreting non-verbal communication. The same gesture or expression can mean radically different things in different contexts. Arms crossed during a conversation on a cold day means something very different than arms crossed immediately after you've made a proposal. A person averting their gaze while discussing a painful memory is engaged in a different process than a person averting their gaze while claiming to have been somewhere they weren't. The skilled reader of people never interprets signals in isolation, but always considers the broader context: emotional, situational, cultural, relational. This requires a kind of three-dimensional thinking, holding multiple levels of information simultaneously: the content of what is being said, the non-verbal signals accompanying the words, the emotional atmosphere of the interaction, the history between the people involved, the cultural norms that shape acceptable expression. It is a complex orchestration, which is why genuine people reading can never be reduced to a simple formula or checklist. Ibn Arabi taught that the spiritual path involves progressive refinement of perception, moving from gross to subtle, from surface to depth. This principle applies perfectly to the development of people reading capacity. Initially, you might notice only obvious signals. Someone is clearly angry, visibly joyful, blatantly lying. With practice, you begin to perceive more subtle distinctions. The difference between authentic joy and manic defensiveness, between healthy anger and rageful collapse, between protective privacy and pathological deception. At more refined levels still, you begin to sense things that have no clear physical marker: the quality of someone's presence, the depth or shallowness of their attention, the degree of integration or fragmentation in their psyche. These refinements do not come from technique alone, but from the overall development of your consciousness, your capacity to hold complexity without needing to reduce it to simplicity. There is a particular quality that appears in people who are telling the truth, not as a performance or a strategy, but as an expression of their actual experience. It is difficult to name but unmistakable when you encounter it, a kind of coherence where body, face, voice, and words are all aligned in the same direction. The eyes do not contradict the mouth, the hands do not betray what the voice is claiming, the posture supports rather than undermines the verbal content. This coherence is felt as authenticity, and it creates a particular resonance in the listener, a sense of relief, of being able to trust what is being offered. Conversely, when someone is lying or even just performing rather than being genuine, there is a quality of dissonance, of subtle misalignment between different channels of communication. The mouth smiles while the eyes remain cold, the voice claims confidence, while the hands fidget nervously. The words say, "I'm happy for you," while the facial expression flashes micro-contempt. Your conscious mind might not immediately identify what is wrong, but your nervous system registers the incongruence and produces a sense of unease, a feeling that something is off. Learning to trust this somatic knowing, this body-level intelligence, is crucial for developing authentic people-reading skills. Your body often knows something is wrong before your mind can articulate what or why. You feel a tightness in your chest when someone is being dishonest, even if you cannot point to the specific signals that are triggering your alarm. You feel an expansion, a warmth, when someone is genuinely aligned, even if you could not explain in logical terms what makes you trust them. The cultivation of this somatic intelligence requires learning to inhabit your body more fully, to notice subtle sensations and shifts in your internal landscape. For many people raised in cultures that privilege intellectual knowing over embodied knowing, this is a profound relearning, a recovery of capacities that were never fully lost but have been systematically ignored. Ibn Arabi's concept of the perfect human offers a beautiful aspirational framework for this work. Imagine becoming so clear in your own perception, so polished as a mirror, that you can reflect others back to themselves with accuracy and compassion. This does not mean you have transcended all bias or achieved some impossible objectivity. Ibn Arabi understood that each mirror has its own unique shape and coloration, each person their own particular perspective. But it does mean you have done enough inner work to recognize your own distortions, to account for your own projections, to distinguish between what you are actually perceiving in the other and what you are manufacturing from your own unresolved material. This level of self-awareness is the necessary foundation for genuine insight into others. Without it, you are simply projecting your own shadow onto everyone you meet, seeing your own fears and desires reflected back, rather than perceiving what is actually present. There is an advanced capacity that emerges from this practice, something that goes beyond reading individual signals to grasping the overall pattern, the gestalt of a person's being. It is the difference between identifying individual trees and perceiving the forest, between analyzing separate notes and hearing the melody. When you develop this holistic perception, you can often sense within seconds of meeting someone something essential about them, not because you have rapidly catalogued all their micro-expressions and body language cues, but because you have perceived their overall presence, the frequency at which their being vibrates. This might sound mystical or abstract, and in some sense it is. It is Ibn Arabi's imaginal perception operating at a refined level. Yet it is also immediately practical. This holistic grasp allows you to navigate interactions with greater wisdom, to know instinctively when to advance and when to withdraw, when to push and when to allow space, when to trust and when to protect yourself. One crucial dimension of reading people that is often overlooked is the recognition of human multiplicity, the fact that each person contains multitudes, contradictions, competing voices and impulses. The person who appears confident in this moment may be terrified in the next. The individual who seems closed and defensive today may be remarkably open tomorrow. To truly read someone is not to fix them in a category, she's an angry person, wait, he's a liar, but to perceive the fluid, complex, ever-shifting reality of their being. Ibn Arabi understood this deeply. Each person manifests different divine attributes in different moments, different facets of their total being coming forward, depending on context and circumstance. This understanding cultivates humility in the reader, a recognition that you can never fully know another person, can never reduce them to your understanding of them. There is always more, always depth beyond what you have perceived, always the possibility that they will surprise you by revealing dimensions of themselves that contradict your previous assessments. The practice of reading people, when done with integrity, becomes a practice of love, not romantic love necessarily, but the love that is simply profound recognition of shared humanity. When you look at another person with the intention to truly see them, when you attend to their subtle communications with genuine interest and respect, you are performing an act of love, whether you name it as such or not. In a world where most people feel profoundly unseen, where our interactions are increasingly mediated by screens and filtered through performances, the simple act of genuine perception is revolutionary. It says, I see you, not the image you're projecting, not the role you're playing, but something of your actual being. This recognition, this being seen, is one of the most fundamental human needs, perhaps as essential as food or shelter, though far less acknowledged. But genuine seeing requires what Ibn Arabi called the relinquishing of the nafs, the egoic self with all its preferences, judgments, and defensive strategies. The ego wants to see others in ways that confirm its own worldview, that support its sense of superiority or victimhood, that justify its actions and choices. When you approach someone from this ego-defended place, your perception is inevitably distorted. You will see what you expect or need to see rather than what is actually present. The relinquishing Ibn Arabi speaks of is not self-annihilation, but a temporary softening of the rigid boundaries of self, a willingness to be changed by what you perceive rather than forcing what you perceive into pre-existing categories. This requires courage because genuine perception is always to some degree threatening to the ego's stability. It introduces new information that may contradict cherished beliefs, reveal uncomfortable truths, demand growth and change. Consider the phenomenon of projection, that universal human tendency to attribute to others qualities that we cannot or will not acknowledge in ourselves. The person who is unconsciously angry but cannot admit it will see anger in everyone around them. The individual harboring secret, dishonest impulses will become hypervigilant about detecting lies in others. Projection is perhaps the greatest obstacle to accurate people reading because it creates a closed loop where we only perceive what we have already decided is there. The antidote is ruthless self-honesty, the willingness to ask in every interaction, am I perceiving this person clearly, Or am I seeing my own rejected qualities reflected back? This question, held with genuine curiosity rather than self-judgment, begins to create space between automatic perception and accurate perception. It allows you to catch yourself in the act of projection and make adjustments, to check your initial impressions against other sources of information, to remain open to being wrong. There is a particular intimacy that develops when you consistently meet people at this level of subtle perception. You begin to recognize the universal patterns of human suffering and human striving that manifest uniquely in each individual. The businessman hiding fear of inadequacy behind aggressive confidence looks different in his particular expression of it, but the essential pattern is recognizable because you have felt that same fear in yourself. The mother covering grief with manic cheerfulness shows it in her own way, but the pattern itself is archetypal, universal, part of the human condition. This recognition of shared patterns does not diminish the unique individuality of each person, but rather holds both simultaneously, the universal and the particular, the archetypal and the specific. Ibn Arabi's philosophy excels at this kind of non-dual thinking, the ability to hold apparent opposites without collapsing into either extreme. One of the most challenging aspects of reading people is discerning the difference between protective armor and authentic presence. Every human being develops defensive strategies, ways of managing themselves in social situations that may or may not reflect their deeper reality. The person who appears cold and distant may be protecting a heart that has been broken too many times. The individual who seems arrogant may be compensating for deep shame. To read someone accurately is not just to perceive the armor, but to sense what it is protecting, to see through the defense to the vulnerability it guards. This requires extraordinary sensitivity and care, because the armor exists for good reason. It has kept the person safe in situations where safety was necessary. To see through it is not to strip it away or expose the person's vulnerability without their consent, but simply to hold a more complete picture of who they are. The question arises, what do you do with the information you gain from reading people accurately? This is where ethics becomes paramount. If you notice that someone is lying to you, do you immediately confront them, or do you first consider why they might feel the need to lie? If you perceive that someone is attracted to you but trying to hide it, do you exploit that vulnerability for your own gratification, or do you handle the information with discretion and respect? The capacity to read people carries responsibility. The responsibility to use your perception in service of the highest good rather than mere self-interest. Ibn Arabi would say that the highest good is always that which serves the manifestation of divine reality through human form, which translates practically to whatever genuinely supports the flourishing of all beings involved. Sometimes this means using your perception to protect yourself from harm. Sometimes it means using it to create space for another's healing. Sometimes it means tactfully ignoring what you perceive to allow the other person their dignity. There is a beautiful feedback loop that occurs as you develop this capacity. The more accurately you perceive others, the more accurately you come to perceive yourself. Every interaction becomes a mirror, showing you not just the other person, but your own reactions, projections, biases, and blind spots. And you notice that you consistently misread a particular type of person. An investigation reveals this is because they remind you of someone from your past. You observe that certain emotional states in others trigger strong discomfort in you, pointing to aspects of your own emotional landscape you have not fully integrated. This reciprocal process of developing perception of self and other simultaneously is at the heart of Ibn Arabi's teaching, the polishing of the mirror that allows divine reality to reflect itself more clearly through your awareness. As the mirror becomes clearer, you see others more accurately. As you see others more accurately, you gain information that allows you to polish the mirror further. The body's autonomic nervous system provides constant information about safety and threat that operates below conscious awareness. When you enter a room where an argument has just occurred, even if everyone is now silent, you can feel the tension in the atmosphere. When you meet someone who is genuinely at peace, something in you relaxes in response to the safety their presence offers. This nervous system communication happens constantly in all human interactions. A subterranean conversation of bodies assessing each other for signs of safety or danger, alliance or threat, resonance or dissonance. The more you develop awareness of your own autonomic responses, noticing when your body is in states of activation or calm, the more you can use these responses as information about what is actually happening in an interaction beneath the surface of words and social performance. Advanced practitioners of this art develop what might be called predictive perception, the ability to anticipate what someone will do or say based on subtle preliminary cues. You sense someone is about to interrupt before they open their mouth. You know an emotional outburst is coming moments before it arrives. You recognize that a person is working themselves up to making a confession or asking for help. This is not psychic ability in any paranormal sense, but simply the natural result of refined perceptual sensitivity combined with extensive experience observing human behavior. You have seen the pattern so many times, the particular tightening of the jaw that precedes angry words, the specific way people's eyes move when they are searching for an excuse, the subtle shift in breathing that comes before tears, that you begin to recognize the early signs of these patterns. This predictive capacity can be immensely useful, allowing you to respond proactively rather than reactively, to offer support before it is requested, to establish boundaries before they are violated. Yet there is a shadow side to advanced perception that must be acknowledged, the potential for isolation that comes from seeing too much too clearly. When you consistently perceive the gap between what people say and what they actually feel, between their performance and their reality, it can become exhausting and lonely. You may find yourself longing for interactions where you can simply take things at face value, where you do not have to track multiple levels of meaning simultaneously. This is why Ibn Arabi emphasized the importance of spiritual community, gatherings of people committed to similar levels of awareness and authenticity, where the burden of constant vigilance can be set down. In such community, the capacity to read people deeply is not a lonely burden, but a shared gift, a way of creating collective spaces of greater honesty and depth. The paradox at the heart of this entire exploration is this: the better you become at reading people, the more you realize how little you actually know. Each person is an infinite mystery, a unique expression of divine reality that can never be fully grasped or comprehended. Your most refined perceptions are still only partial views, snapshots of a being that is constantly flowing, changing, revealing new dimensions. This recognition keeps you humble, keeps you curious, keeps you open to being surprised and confounded by the people you thought you understood. It transforms people reading from an exercise in mastery to an ongoing practice of reverence. You are not trying to master the other person through your perception, but to honor the sacred mystery of their being by perceiving them as clearly as your limited human awareness allows. In the end, the capacity to read anyone in seconds is less about speed than about depth of presence. It is not that you are rapidly processing vast amounts of information, though that may be part of it, but that you are meeting the other person from a place of such clarity and openness that they naturally reveal themselves. When you approach someone without agenda, without judgment, without the need to prove anything or protect anything, you create a field of permission in which their authentic self can emerge. This is the deepest secret of reading people. You do not read them through clever analysis or strategic observation, but by becoming a safe space in which their truth can appear. You become, in Ibn Arabi's terms, a polished mirror that reflects without distortion, that shows the person to themselves as they actually are. This quality of mirroring is the greatest gift one human being can offer another. Not agreement, not validation of their illusions, but clear reflection of their reality offered with love. The journey from unconscious interaction to conscious perception is a journey of awakening, a progressive refinement of awareness that touches every dimension of human experience. As you develop the capacity to read others with greater accuracy and compassion, you simultaneously develop greater awareness of yourself, greater capacity for genuine intimacy, greater skill in navigating complex social situations. But perhaps most importantly, you develop greater reverence for the mystery of human existence itself, the extraordinary fact that consciousness has taken form in billions of unique configurations, each one a complete world unto itself, each one containing depths that could be explored for a lifetime. To read people is ultimately to read yourself, because the divine reality that manifests as the other is the same divine reality that manifests as you. We are all mirrors reflecting the same infinite source, each from our own unique angle, each offering the universe a view of itself that only we can provide. So when you look at another person with the intention to truly see them, remember that you are participating in something sacred. You are not merely extracting information for tactical advantage or satisfying idle curiosity. You are engaging in an act of recognition, a moment where the divine witnesses itself through the meeting of two consciousnesses. Every micro-expression you perceive, every subtle shift in posture you notice, every incongruence between words and feeling you detect, all of it is information, yes, but it is also invitation. Invitation to greater depth, greater authenticity, greater recognition of the profound interconnection that underlies the apparent separation between self and other. This is what Ibn Arabi understood and what we are invited to remember. That reading people is not ultimately about seeing through their defenses or detecting their deceptions, but about recognizing the divine perfection struggling to express itself through imperfect human form. When you see from this place of recognition, you are not reading people. You are witnessing the sacred moment by moment in every face you encounter.